Jiraiya vs Itachi. Let's assume both characters are Naruto Shippuden and pit them against each other. Let's see who wins this. The first thing I have to address in this video is the fact that Itachi was very much hyping Jiraiya back in Naruto Part 1. He says that if he were to fight Jiraiya, the best he could probably do was to kill him while he also dies in the battle, and Kisame is absolutely scared of Jiraiya. So, this very much implies Jiraiya is equal or much higher than Kisame and Itachi put together, which is not a very truthful statement. We should never take that into account when analyzing Jiraiya and Itachi's strength, especially in a fight where they're pit against each other. You just have to analyze Itachi's intentions in there. He did not want to fight Jiraiya. Itachi was a member of the Leaf Village, a spy, but still working for the Leaf. He didn't want to capture Naruto, he didn't want to have to hurt or kill Jiraiya in that situation because Jiraiya is a member of the Leaf Village and a powerful ninja that they have. So no, Itachi telling those things to Kisame was just him making sure Kisame would obey him whenever he called for a retreat because Jiraiya is too powerful for them. But it shouldn't really be taken into account when analyzing the strength of any of those characters because Itachi was lying through his teeth. For instance, if Itachi was so inferior to Jiraiya, Orochimaru, a guy that was casually facing against Jiraiya in the three-way deadlock, wouldn't have much of a problem taking Itachi's body to himself, which was his initial goal when he entered the Akatsuki, and we clearly see how that ended for Orochimaru. So Itachi's statement there to Kisame, do not take that into consideration, it's just a lie, and let's get started with the actual fight between Jiraiya and Itachi. We're gonna be breaking this down into different categories, starting off with their physical capabilities. Itachi's a very fast shinobi. He was keeping up with KCM1 Naruto in the War Arc. That's really his best speed feat. That KCM1 Naruto was able to dodge a full-powered Raikage dashing at him with all his speed. The Raikage was the fastest ninja alive in that point of the story, and Naruto, in doing that, really reminded him of Minato, the fastest shinobi of all time, and Itachi is actually trading blows with this Naruto, talking with him about what happened to Sasuke after he died. Not only that, but KCM1 Naruto was unable to land any consistent blows on Edo Itachi, and bear in mind that the Edo Tensei version of the character is slower than the alive version, even though you could argue that Itachi when alive was sick and therefore physically incapable of going at his max speed, but usually the Edo Tensei is slower than the peak potential of the alive version anyways. Now some people counter this feat saying that Naruto wasn't going all out because they were talking about Sasuke, and Naruto also wanted to get information from Itachi, but why on earth would Naruto be holding back against Itachi Uchiha, a ninja he had encountered before and that he knows fully well how powerful Itachi was? He was even warning Killer Bee that, you know, this guy is pretty much insane, do not let him look into your eyes, be very careful about him. He was just very apprehensive, telling Bee that if he lands Tsukiyomi, it's GG, even though Bee is a perfect Jinchuriki, it wouldn't help him against that type of genjutsu. And he was talking about the same thing with Amaterasu, but it's a ninjutsu instead. But yeah, this doesn't have much to do with taijutsu. However, if Naruto was this apprehensive, he wouldn't be holding back his speed when talking to Itachi. Maybe he wasn't going all out to seal him or deal any attacks, but they were relative when they were moving, because if Naruto could run circles around Itachi, then he would have. It would have been a much safer way to approach the conversation in that particular situation. And yet, Naruto and Itachi are trading blows. Now, of course, Itachi is not as fast or even faster than the Raikage or KCM1 Naruto, but he is definitely relative to them, especially with the Sharingan and Mangekyo Sharingan, which definitely amps his reaction time, enabling him to fight faster opponents than him. And don't forget that Edo Itachi fought alongside EMS Sasuke against Kabuto, EMS Sasuke who fought alongside KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto against Jubito. You know, this Sasuke is the exact same Sasuke who fought alongside Itachi. He was fighting against Jubito, one of the most powerful characters of the series, and Itachi was relative to him in speed, and also to Sage Kabuto, who's a very fast and underrated character. Now yeah, EMS Sasuke wasn't as fast as KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto, but they were fighting relatively to each other, and there wasn't a single time where Sasuke looked at Naruto and said, oh, he's too fast, I can't keep up with him, or anything like it. And there was no time when Itachi looked at EMS Sasuke, for example, and said, oh, he's too fast for me, I cannot keep up with him. So Itachi is actually among the fastest characters in the Naruto series. Now Jiraiya, on the other hand, doesn't have a whole lot of speed feats in base. he reacted to Kisame swinging his Samehara at Naruto being able to summon his toad and shielding him. He was relative to a nerfed Reaper Death Seal Orochimaru in the three-way deadlock, and yes, Jiraiya was also nerfed by Tsunade's drug, but what do you think is a more powerful nerf? Literal God of Death, or Tsunade's drug that made Jiraiya a little bit sluggish? I don't know, I would go with the Reaper Death Seal, and Orochimaru kind of fondles Jiraiya in that fight. Base Jiraiya was almost killed by the 4 Tails version 2 9 Tails, and yes, killing Naruto was obviously something Jiraiya didn't want to do when Naruto went berserk with his version 2 state. However, there would be no reason for Jiraiya to be holding back his speed against the 4 Tails, would it? Why would he go slower just because he doesn't want to harm Naruto? This makes no sense. He was tagged by the 4 Tails and almost killed by it. This means that Jiraiya, in terms of durability, can barely withstand a single attack from the 4 Tails, and that he was also tagged by it and unable to dodge at least one of the attacks. Meanwhile, Kakashi and Guy were able to keep up with several different version 2 Jinchuriki during the war arc, some of them with higher numbers of tails than just 4. And bear in mind, Naruto only has 50% of the 9 tails. Kakashi and Guy, who fought alongside KCM1 Naruto, who was fighting against Itachi, so they are at least relative, and we saw they were doing just fine against the version 2 tail beast, meaning that at that point of the story, those characters were far faster than Jiraiya already. Now, the worst speed feat for base Jiraiya was when he got blitzed by Might Guy after his encounter with Itachi and Kisame. And yes, that was supposed to be a comedic scene, but it doesn't change the fact that Jiraiya wasn't able to react to Might Guy coming all the way from the other side of the hallway and screaming, "Dynamic entry!" nailing him in the face with a kick. So yeah, Itachi eclipses base Jiraiya in terms of speed, but now let's talk about Sage Mode Jiraiya. Obviously, he gets much faster in Sage Mode. Kishimoto tries to show that the first time he uses his massive Rasengan against Pain, he throws his sandals off the wall when he's hanging on the wall, and then he jumps towards Pain, his sandals fall down, and then he reaches Pain. But that's not very impressive. I mean, the sandals fell before you attacked Pain with the Rasengan. And it wasn't as though Jiraiya was blitzing the paths of Pain and completely outspeeding them. No, they were fighting just fine against Jiraiya. And Jiraiya was fighting against 3 paths of Pain: the human path, the animal path, and the Preta path. And let's be real, none of them were speedsters or anything like that. I mean, they weren't slow or anything, but nothing too crazy. Jiraiya managed to land 2 kicks on the human path in Sage Mode, but other than that, his taijutsu was completely ineffective. Pain was able to react to most of Jiraiya's attacks, and you may say, well, it's because of the shared field of view. And yes, that gave Pain an advantage, but it just made sure that Pain would be able to see where Jiraiya was coming from. If Jiraiya was that much faster than Pain, then even though Pain saw him with his shared field of vision, he should be able to still blitz Pain regardless. But no, this never really happens. So now let's play a little bit of a comparison game here. Jiraiya has an incomplete, imperfect Sage Mode, which provides a much lower amp than Naruto's complete and perfect Sage Mode. This is stated during the entire story. Fukasaku says, "Naruto, you've achieved perfect Sage Mode. You've surpassed Jiraiya." Great. So this means Sage Mode Naruto is stronger than Jiraiya. He has better strength, durability, speed, reaction time, and everything else than his former master. We just have to kind of compare how both of them did against the Asura Path. Jiraiya was surprised and blitzed by the Asura Path. His arm was blown away by one of his attacks, while Naruto completely annihilated the Asura Path with a simple Rasengan, blitzing him instead. Pain also recognized Sage Mode Naruto as the strongest foe he had ever faced, that pushed him the furthest ever. And KCM1 Naruto is far stronger than Sage Mode Naruto, especially when it comes to speed. Naruto literally says so himself, B thinks so, Itachi thinks so, Nagato thinks so too, so everybody's like, okay, Naruto's much stronger here than he was before in Sage Mode, and we clearly see time and time again that Naruto's speed is hyped up. So if Itachi is capable of keeping up with KCM1 Naruto, who's faster than Sage Mode Naruto, who's faster than Sage Mode Jiraiya, then it's very safe to say that Itachi would outclass Sage Mode Jiraiya in terms of speed, and don't even talk about base Jiraiya here. Of course, speed is not the only physical attribute. We have to take into consideration strength. Jiraiya hits pretty hard in Sage Mode. The hits he landed on the human path were powerful. The kicks threw him away several meters and even rendered his eyes useless. thing is, base Jiraiya doesn't really have any strength feats, and Itachi's not weak either in terms of physical strength. He kicks people around quite hard. He did it to Sasuke a couple of times, just kicking him to the other side of the wall in part 1. In part 2 as well, during their final fight, Itachi was dealing some pretty powerful taijutsu blows, and we also saw him kicking Kurenai, a Jonin, far away with a kick as well. Now, of course, Sasuke and Kurenai are below Itachi's level, but so is the human path by himself. Also, even though Sage Mode increases strength to a pretty large degree, the human path and the Diva path were able to casually block Sage Mode Jiraiya's punches with their bare hands. Like, imagine if they tried to block Tsunade's or even the Raikage's punches with their bare hands, their punches would just blow straight through their guard and actually hit them very hard. So even though Jiraiya is much stronger in Sage Mode and still stronger than Itachi is, he's not a powerhouse in terms of physical strength. Sage Mode also provides durability amps, but we see that Sage Mode Jiraiya is not exactly a tank, as his arm is completely blown away by the Asura path quite casually. He's getting skewered by the pain rods while Sage Mode Naruto is breaking them with his bare hands. Now Itachi's durability is not great either. In the Sasuke fight, Sasuke manages to pierce him with a shuriken, and he takes some pretty substantial damage from Sasuke's fire style when he's setting up Kirin. So I'll give overall durability to Jiraiya, just like strength, but there's not nearly as much of a gap between those two as there is between Jiraiya and Itachi's speed. Reaction time is something else amped by Sage Mode, but an imperfect Sage Mode is not gonna give Jiraiya a better reaction time than a base Sharingan. Sasuke in the 5 Kage Summit was reacting to the Raikage, the fastest shinobi alive, with a base Sharingan landing a Chidori on him, while Jiraiya in the fight against Pain couldn't react to the Asura path coming from behind him, telling him, "Jiraiya-sensei, I thought you taught me not to lower my guard," and then he blows his arm off, and Jiraiya couldn't react to that in Sage Mode, and a half that Itachi was able to react to Kirin, one of the fastest attacks in the Naruto series that's stated to be impossible to dodge. So reaction time goes to Itachi, no question about it. Now let's move on to their intellect and battle IQ. And let's be real, Itachi has this part of the fight in the bag. I don't think anybody's going to complain about it, but yeah, Itachi is smarter than Jiraiya. I mean, Jiraiya is pretty smart too. He's very wise, which comes with experience, and he was able to figure out Pain's abilities, dissecting how the Rinnegan worked, at least a shared field of view. But Itachi was able to counter Chibaku Tensei just by staring at it for 2 seconds. Also, Itachi completely finesses Nagato in that fight. He's about to kill Bee and Naruto, and he saves them very quickly using his intelligence. Another intelligence feat for Itachi was when he first appeared in the series and was completely finessing Kakashi and the other Jonin just with strategy, and Kakashi is one of the smartest ninjas in the verse. But regardless, taijutsu and strategy are not everything, so we have to look at their actual jutsus. So starting with the more vanilla stuff, they both have fire style jutsus, and I think their fire style are pretty much equivalent to each other. I don't even think they would resort too much to this particular ability because they know each other, possess the same type of jutsu, and they would just kind of cancel each other out, just like Sasuke and Itachi during their fight, clashing their fireballs against each other. Jiraiya also likes to use his hairstyle jutsu, which in this particular situation wouldn't work against Itachi. He's much faster than his hair attacks. We saw individual pain bodies having no issue whatsoever dealing with the hairs. The shadow technique he used to catch Konan off guard would also not work against Itachi. First, because he can see chakra with his Sharingan, and he wouldn't fall for it because, you know, Itachi's pretty smart. Itachi, on the other hand, has several genjutsus that require eye contact, and a couple that don't, such as the finger genjutsu that he put Naruto under very casually. And Naruto failed to break out of it using Jiraiya's technique to break out of genjutsu, so this doesn't really bode very well for Jiraiya, does it? Bear in mind that it wasn't even Itachi who put Naruto under that genjutsu, it was just a 30% doppelganger, and Jiraiya said it himself several times that he sucks at genjutsu, especially against someone like Itachi. I think this would be a very bad thing for him. Jiraiya has his summons as well, especially the large summons, but they would be completely useless against Itachi. If Sasuke was able to put Manda, who scales above Katsuyu and Gamabunta together under a genjutsu, in a very big pinch while he's trying to escape from Deidara's explosion, low on chakra, I have no doubt in my mind that Itachi, who has more prowess with a Sharingan in that particular time of the story, would be able to put any of Jiraiya's summons under his genjutsu Genjutsu and control them to his whims. Also, Itachi has Amaterasu, which is the hardest counter for large beasts that exists in the Naruto series. We see the Eight Tails getting one-shot by a single Amaterasu. It couldn't do anything except for substitute RB, and the Eight Tails would die. Itachi also destroys Nagato's multi-headed hound in the war arc with his Amaterasu, and that's the strongest non-tail beast summon in the entire series. And other than that, just Genjutsu alone would be very problematic for Jiraiya. Just think about this for a second. Itachi put Konoha's most powerful Genjutsu specialist, Kurenai, under a reverse Genjutsu. He let himself get hit by Kurenai's Genjutsu and just said, nope, I'm gonna reverse that, and he did it. Jiraiya also has his Dark Swamp, which is stated to engulf anything that steps in it. However, if Jiraiya didn't use that against Pain in one of the most important fights of his life and the most powerful opponent he's ever faced, I think it's because he thought, well, this jutsu is not gonna work. This guy's gonna be able to react to it, jump away, and whatever. Itachi would be the exact same, so Jiraiya wouldn't even bother using it. Jiraiya has the frog stomach summoning, but we've already seen Itachi literally escaping that, so Jiraiya would probably not even use it to begin with. Now, the only way I can conceive Jiraiya beating Itachi in base would be for him to land a Rasengan on him, and even if we assume a single Rasengan would be enough to kill Itachi, which I don't think it would. It would hurt him for sure, but not kill him outright. How would Jiraiya even do that? How is he going to tag Itachi with his Rasengan? Itachi is much faster and he has better reaction time. He can offend Jiraiya with his several types of Genjutsu and use explosive shadow clones as well, which is a very overlooked but powerful ability. So the only alternative Jiraiya would have really was to enter Sage Mode, which brings us to a very massive problem. Jiraiya has to keep on touching his hands for a decent amount of time before he summons Mayimpa so that they can use Sage Mode on top of his shoulders. We saw how tough that was against the Animal Path. Just a single Path of Pain alone gave Jiraiya a world of trouble to summon Mayimpa. Itachi would never allow Jiraiya to do that. Keeping Itachi at bay for the time he needs to summon Mayimpa would just not be feasible. So we have to assume Jiraiya is entering the battle in Sage Mode, otherwise Itachi is going to steamroll him. And bear in mind, I barely talked about Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan abilities yet. So let's assume Jiraiya summons Mayimpa before the fight starts, and then he engages Itachi already on Sage Mode. There are problems still, because Itachi is faster than Sage Mode Jiraiya by a large margin, as we've described before. Jiraiya's tactics of using smoke bombs, like he tried against the Paths of Pain, wouldn't really work against Itachi because he is much smarter than Nagato is, and they didn't really work against Pain either. But there's a big problem that Mayimpa are gonna solve right away. They're gonna be able to snap Jiraiya out of a Genjutsu immediately after he's put under it. So Jiraiya's pretty much good against Itachi's base Genjutsu, unless Itachi manages to put all three of them under a Genjutsu at the same time, which honestly is not that far-fetched, because towards the end of the series, Sasuke is able to put all 9 tail beasts under a Genjutsu at the same time. Now, of course, there was Rinnegan Sasuke, a character far superior to Itachi, but there's a precedent. But that's probably unlikely, so let's keep that out of the equation for now. Let's talk about the jutsus Jiraiya has in combination with Mayimpa and Sage Mode. We first have the Oil, Fire, Wind style combo that seems to be a pretty decent ability that Pain absorbs, but that's because he has the Rinnegan. And maybe that would give a little bit of trouble to Itachi. However, I can see him outrunning the Oil, jumping to a higher position, and in the worst case scenario, using his Susanoo to avoid it. Itachi would easily be able to avoid Pa's Water Jet that cut through the Chameleon in the Pain fight, as well as Jiraiya's massive Rasengan, simply because Itachi has much higher speed and reaction time. Also, Jiraiya states that his fastest jutsu in his arsenal is Sage Art Hair Needle that he uses against Pain, and the Animal Path is able to block that easily using his Panda summon. And if that's Jiraiya's fastest jutsu, I mean, Itachi reacted to Kirin. I don't see that Animal Path reacting to Kirin, and he reacted just fine to the Hair Needle attack. And it's also a pretty puny attack, all things considered. Like, if you get hit by all those needles, I don't even think you're gonna die. But okay, let's give Jiraiya the benefit of the doubt here and say that he lands a hit. Any attack, really. Hell, let's say Jiraiya lands a massive Rasengan straight on Itachi, which is definitely Jiraiya's strongest jutsu when it comes to sheer strength and destructive capability. But none of that's going to work, simply because Itachi has the Susanoo, and he wouldn't need the entire Susanoo for any of these attacks. attacks. He would just need the ribcage if he was to get hit by them. Think about it. In the War Arc, Naruto shoved his massive Rasengan against Madara, and Madara was able to casually tank that with his ribcage. And Madara was being thrusted upwards with the Earth-style jutsu from the Tsuchikage, so it was a combo attack, and Naruto's massive Rasengan wasn't able to do anything to Madara's simple ribcage. Now yes, of course, Madara is far more powerful than Itachi, but that Sage Mode Naruto that thrusted Rasengan on Madara's ribcage is also far more powerful than Jiraiya in Sage Mode, so this is a very relevant feat to bring up. The Susanoo ribcage completely negates Jiraiya's most powerful jutsu. So if the massive Rasengan can't do any damage to Itachi with his ribcage on, there's nothing on Jiraiya's arsenal that can, because that's his most powerful jutsu. And let me remind you that the ribcage is the weakest form of the Susanoo, like by a long shot. Like Itachi has the Yara mirror with his complete Susanoo that can literally block any attack, and the Totsuka blade that can seal anything he touches. And Itachi doesn't even have to fight with his Susanoo activated. He can fight normally against Jiraiya in his base, and if for some reason Jiraiya manages to land an attack on Itachi, he can activate his Susanoo instantly. The Susanoo activation is instantaneous. We see that when Sasuke uses Kirin on Itachi. Itachi uses the Susanoo to block Kirin, and that was done in a split-second reaction time. It's fast enough to block any of Sage Jiraiya's attacks, including his fastest attack, the hair needle jutsu. Like if the animal path was fast enough to weave hand signs before the needles landed on him and summon the panda shield, Itachi can bring out his Susanoo to block anything, which is instantaneous. So what could Jiraiya really do here? Because his slower, his attacks are completely useless against Itachi's most basic defense. Well, one tactic could be to try and delay the fight so that Itachi would run out of chakra and steam. And yes, Itachi was sick in Naruto Shippuden, and we're taking that into consideration. However, even though Jiraiya has a much vaster chakra pool than Itachi does, it's not as though Itachi can cast 2 jutsus and he's done. Take a look at the fight against Sasuke again. Itachi did a lot of stuff before he ran out of chakra and died. Itachi's jutsu arsenal is extremely potent. He can hit very hard and finish fights very quickly. He himself knows about his own weaknesses, and he knows he has to finish fights fast. And regarding Itachi's attacks, we've only kinda considered his most basic stuff so far. I didn't even talk about Itachi's Amaterasu, which is an attack Jiraiya has absolutely no chance to dodge. Even though he has Sage Mode and some precognition in terms of sensing abilities, you need to be around Raikage levels of speed to dodge Amaterasu coming straight at you, or your reaction time has to be great in order to cast something and block the jutsu. Unfortunately, Jiraiya has none of these things going for him. He's getting hit by Amaterasu, and that's it. Now, I've seen some arguments that Jiraiya can use his hair to wrap it around himself and use it as a shield for Amaterasu, but first, he wouldn't even be fast enough to do that in time. The Amaterasu is just gonna hit him before he even tries. Second, even if that works and Jiraiya blocks the Amaterasu, when the hair retracts back into his head, he's still gonna be burning because the Amaterasu is not gonna stop burning just because your hair is retracting. I mean, maybe Jiraiya could cut his hair off just like the Raikage cut his arm off when he was hit by Amaterasu. However, that's not the most practical way to fight against Itachi, and if you're busy cutting your hair, I can see Itachi coming in and just slashing at Jiraiya and finishing the job. And then some people will claim that Amaterasu will be completely worthless against Jiraiya because Jiraiya can seal the dark flames. And this is one of the most disingenuous arguments that you can possibly use in this fight, because Jiraiya had to write an entire scroll worth of glyphs and perform a complex sealing jutsu that took him some time that he would not have during a fight against Itachi, and against a jutsu like Amaterasu that's pretty much instantaneous. You look at the person is burning. Also, if at any moment of the fight Itachi makes eye contact with Jiraiya, he can use Tsukuyomi and one-shot him that way. If Kakashi, who has a Sharingan, is completely unable to do anything against Tsukuyomi, Jiraiya, who is bad at Genjutsu, is not breaking out of it. This would be ridiculous to think. Naruto was sure Tsukuyomi would even work on B, who's a perfect Jinchuriki, meaning that even the A-Tails wouldn't be able to break him out, so Ma and Pa would just be looking at Jiraiya passing out all of a sudden after he makes eye contact with Itachi. And if Itachi is feeling particularly mean, he can use the Totsuka blade to seal Jiraiya Jiraiya. The Totsuka Blade was able to blitz Nagato and seal him during the war arc. It was also able to defeat Orochimaru's 8-headed massive serpent, which is Orochimaru's strongest form, and we see how much Jiraiya struggled against Orochimaru every time they had to fight against each other, and the Totsuka Blade completely stomped Orochimaru's strongest form here, absolutely no diff. And that Itachi had fought Sasuke for quite a while and was low on chakra after using a lot of his jutsus, so still had gas to destroy Orochimaru in that situation. So yeah, Itachi has 3 jutsus that are insta-kills against Jiraiya, Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi with the Totsuka Blade. I'm not even counting Izanami here because I think it's kind of disingenuous to count Izanami in versus battles. It's kind of annoying. Or Kodo Matsukami. The Kodo Matsukami was supposed to be used on Sasuke. He was not going to waste that on another fight. And Jiraiya's defenses cannot be bypassed by any of Jiraiya's jutsus. But, of course, some people may be screaming at me right now. What about the Frog Genjutsu? It's an insanely powerful genjutsu, the strongest auditory genjutsu in the verse. It one-shot 3 paths of pain. Okay, so the first problem with that genjutsu is that it's really loud and it takes some time for the frogs to sink in their singing, and it's very easy for Itachi to come in that time and just completely annihilate them, stopping them from ever casting the genjutsu. Like, this is an incredible weakness. Itachi would immediately know something is up, and Itachi is able to figure out and dissect complex jutsus in 0.2 seconds. We see time and time again in the series is capable of doing that. So he would see frogs singing, trying to sync up their singing, and he's gonna look at them and think, okay, this is an auditory genjutsu, let me stop it. The noise even gives away their location, meaning that they wouldn't be able to hide from Itachi very long. But let's assume somehow, for some miracle, Itachi gets hit by the genjutsu. Would it actually work? Because, you know, Itachi is the guy who stomped a genjutsu specialist, allowing her to hit him with her genjutsu and Una reverse card her. The guy whose entire character revolves around knowing every jutsu has a weakness and has countermeasures for every single situation he is in. Like, I can see Itachi breaking out of the frog genjutsu if he gets hit by it. But even if you give hitting Itachi with a frog genjutsu a win con for Jiraiya, it's 1,000 times more likely that Jiraiya is gonna get hit by any of Itachi's attacks way before he's able to perform the frog genjutsu. And I don't even think Jiraiya would see this as a valid tactic here. He's gonna think, oh, let me use genjutsu against Genjutsu God in the Naruto verse, a guy that I know is one of the best genjutsu users that was ever born. Let's take a look at some direct comparisons between the two characters in opponents that they fought that have similar abilities or are even the same opponent. Now, the most obvious one is definitely gonna be Orochimaru. Orochimaru is definitely a character that's supposed to be around Jiraiya's level. They fought against each other several times in the past. We saw them being relative to each other in the three-way deadlock. They were both nerfed, so it's fine. They were, you know, at the same level there, and Jiraiya was kind of fondled anyway. But we know that Jiraiya tried to stop Orochimaru from leaving the Leaf Village in the past, and he lost the fight. One thing is for certain, Orochimaru definitely does not fear Jiraiya whatsoever. He's fighting against Jiraiya in the three-way deadlock like, oh, you're such a stupid idiot. You're training a guy that doesn't know any jutsus. Naruto's stupid. He's making fun of Jiraiya the entire time. Meanwhile, when he thinks about Itachi, for example, he's like, oh man, I really fumbled the ball here because I cannot take Itachi's body anymore. Like, there's no way. The entire purpose of me entering the Akatsuki was a failure because I'm simply too weak to fight against Itachi. And bear in mind, this mindset began before Orochimaru got his arm sealed by Hiruzen. He already knew he wasn't powerful enough to fight against Itachi at all before he got sealed, and that's why he was going after Sasuke already in the Forest of Death. Orochimaru was a guy that was pretty much confident in taking down Hiruzen, but he was absolutely terrified of facing Itachi, and for good reason. Now let's compare the actual fights. Jiraiya gets destroyed by nerfed Orochimaru. Meanwhile, a 13-year-old Itachi, fresh in the Akatsuki, negative diffed, and Orochimaru with both of his arms. Can you see the difference here? I mean, I'm not the only one seeing this, right? And you may say that the A beats B and B beats C, therefore A also beats C logic is wrong because Naruto abilities have to be taken into account. Several different factors are in play here in the Naruto series. There's so much of a difference between how Itachi does against Orochimaru and how Jiraiya does against Orochimaru that the ABC logic applies here. And I mentioned this before, but there's a second match against Orochimaru where Itachi completely stomps him the same way he did back when he just joined the Akatsuki. He completely finesses the 8-tailed serpent Orochimaru form after fighting a long battle against Sasuke being almost out of chakra, and he's like, no, yeah, I got this, there's nothing to worry about, I'm just gonna stomp Orochimaru real quick here. Would Sage Mode Jiraiya be able to even beat that form of Orochimaru? I find that very unlikely. In the War Arc, Edo Itachi fights against Sage Mode Kabuto, who is a perfected version of Orochimaru with a billion different jutsus from a billion different people, with one of the most powerful Sage Modes in the entire series, and Itachi was fighting nerfed because he couldn't kill Kabuto. He had to make sure he would undo the Edo Tensei, and yes, Sasuke was helping Itachi, no, but some people may even argue that Sasuke was more of a hindrance for Itachi in that fight than helping him, because Itachi was protecting him at all times. So yeah, Itachi no diffs Jiraiya in any situation. Itachi with a base Sharingan would be able to easily take care of Sage Mode Jiraiya, and there is nothing much he could do about it. But let me know in the comments why I'm wrong about this fight. Subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the versus battle, like this video to help me with the YouTube algorithm, and thank you so much for watching, guys.